Hello and welcome to Held in Our Hearts Baby Loss Podcast. We are an Edinburgh-based charity providing baby loss counselling and support for bereaved families. We are committed to ensuring that no family has to face their journey of loss alone, and we wanted to create this podcast to reach out and share stories, encouraging greater connection and understanding. Join us on our journey as we speak to a wide variety of guest speakers who have been personally affected by baby loss or who have been moved by it.
Hello and welcome to our Held in Our Hearts podcast, where we talk about grandparents' grief. Today we will talk to Michelle Lawrence and Anne Hamilton. We will discuss their grandparents' grief and how they've coped with the loss of their precious grandchildren. Michelle lost her grandson Mason and Anne lost her granddaughter Ivy Jean. When we discuss the loss of their grandchildren, we will learn about how they coped and how their love for their adult children shone through. We will discuss how they manage milestones, birthdays, Christmases and anniversaries, and also the advice that they offer other bereaved grandparents when looking for support. We hope you enjoy.
So, here we are tonight with Michelle and Anne, two of our bereaved grandparents. So, we'd like them to introduce themselves tonight. So, Anne, can you tell us a bit about you?
I'm Anne Hamilton. I have just recently become retired. My two grandchildren, I have two grandchildren, Charlotte and Ivy Jean, who was born sleeping.
Oh, well, retirement sounds good, Anne.
No, it's not as made out to be, I can assure you. I'd rather be working.
So, Michelle, do you want to tell us a bit about you?
My name's Michelle Lawrence and I have three grandchildren, CJ, Soraya and Mason, who fell asleep as well.
Do you know what? Such lovely names for your grandchildren, isn't it? Ivy Jean and Mason.
It's lovely names.
Such beautiful names.
Yeah.
Love. So tonight,
Ivy Jean was part of my mother's name. So Lisa had actually went and named her after my mum as her second name.
Oh, that's amazing.
Mm-hmm. My mum had died just the year before, so they were very close, Lisa and my mum. So when they came out with the name Ivy Jean, I couldn't believe it. It was really nice.
Such a nice touch, isn't it?
It is.
It is.
Mm-hmm. So one of the questions we were going to start with tonight was we're talking about that, you know, with being a bereaved grandparent, that you feel that you want to stay strong for your adult children, and sometimes that can be really difficult and, you know, quite difficult to manage sometimes. So how would you say that you've managed your grief in regards to your staying strong for your adult children?
In the beginning with my grief, I kept it secret because I didn't want to upset my son and his partner, and everything was going on, and there was a lot of like dealing with the adult children, but also my daughter as well, who was pregnant at the same time. So I found that pretty difficult, and I've no idea how I got through it. But I just felt that I was bursting at the seams with all different emotions for my son, my daughter, Mason, and myself.
I was very similar because I had a granddaughter who was just born actually 1 month and 2 days before Ivy was born. And I found it very difficult that way, showing the grief, my own grief, and keeping it hidden, being there to support my daughter and her husband, and then actually trying to support my own son, and his partner who had just given birth, and I found that very, very hard.
Mm-hmm.
The thing about that for both of you as well, you know, very, very similar but different circumstances. The fact that you're both trying to hold your own grief in and not finding an opportunity to be able to chat about it. Would you agree?
Oh, definitely.
Definitely. It's very hard because some people don't want to listen to you. Other people do. And then you found that you were coming home at night and crying because that is the only place you could do it, in your own house and often by your own self. And I found that very, very hard. And then you went and seen the daughter the following day, and the daughter and the son-in-law, and they were trying to keep it together and you were trying to keep it together for them. And it's very, very hard, very hard.
And it's they're not being able to speak to them how you're feeling, because obviously they're grieving for their loss, so you tend to just take all their emotions on top of your own, which I found I had so many headaches and restless sleeping because I was scared to say anything to anybody for the fear of upsetting either my daughter or my son. So I didn't get to see my little grandson, CJ, at the time because I was scared it would upset my other son with him losing his baby. And I just felt like Piggy in the middle between the two children.
Well, I know I went 2 days after Ivy Jean was born sleeping, I went to see my other granddaughter, and my son's partner wasn't going to give me to hold her because she was scared. And I thought, because she thought there was something wrong with me, that I could actually pass this on to Charlotte, which is stupid, totally stupid. But I felt it really badly that day. And she felt that I was just grieving too much. How can you grieve too much at a loss of a child? You can't.
You can't, no.
It's very, very hard. No.
And it's amazing listening to both of you there, because, you know, for myself as a bereaved mum, I know my mum, she was kind of nervous about what to say, and I was nervous about what to say to her. So, you know, I can understand that, you know, and sometimes I feel like my mum didn't say too much. And, you know, listening to it from your point of view, that you're right, it is, you don't know what to say and you don't know what's going to upset your grieving child. So it is, you're holding on to all this grief. And it almost feels like a bit like a pressure cooker, would you say?
Oh, definitely, yes.
Yeah, because as if they were children, you take them up on your knee and you sit and cuddle them. You can't do that. They're adults now. They don't want that. And they only want their partner or their husband or their wife. They want support from them, not so much their mum.
Exactly.
And that is very, very hard.
And it's almost, again, I remember my own mum saying it's not like you're 5 and you've fallen over, and as a parent you can put a plaster on it. It's you can't fix it, and you want to be able to fix it.
Can't do anything for them. You can only be there. Years ago, just looking through my family history, believe it or not, just about 2 years ago, we found out that my gran had 2 stillborn children. Well, one lived till she was 11 months old. We never ever knew. We only thought my mum was one of 3, but she was actually one of 5. But they never spoke about it then. And it's getting harder for people to speak about it. Maybe what's happened down in England, the recently review, will actually help people being more open and speaking about loss of children, because it is a very hard thing to deal with.
You're totally right, Anna. It's a very difficult subject for a lot of people to be able to sort of start those conversations. And as you know, for the charity that we've now in recent years started a grandparent support group, and pre-lockdown we were able to get together and meet just for a few times during lockdown, just before lockdown, and get together and have a chat and have a coffee. So, you know, would you say then it is important for other grandparents to be able to talk to each other?
I would definitely say so, because as you know, Tracy, I know you through Mason, doing different walks with different people, different grandparents. It's better, I find it better being out and talking about it when we were walking, because it was more relaxed, or even going up to the Craig Lockhart and speaking with Tracy. I just found I could come out of my comfort zone and go into another comfort zone for the fear of not upsetting anybody in the family, and I could speak my mind and not hold it back, and I could break down when I wanted. That was the way I had to deal with it. I felt different when I was out with other grandparents.
I think grandparents supporting one another, because a lot of the grandparents, like your mum, Tracy, would have been through it. She could actually come in and speak to us who have recently went through it and are still going through it, and giving advice. We know it's not going to disappear overnight. It's going to last for the rest of their lives. This one piece of jigsaw always missing out her hearts.
But I felt that I wasn't alone, and other grandparents understood how I felt. It wasn't about my son, it wasn't about my daughter or anything like that. It was about my grief and how I was dealing with it. And like yourself, Anne, you're in the same situation as I am. You're frightened to say one to one child and visit another child. You just feel like you're getting pulled from your adult child to another adult child, and you're just stuck in the middle. At least when I went to the grandparents' meetings, everybody could talk and we could laugh, and not that it's a funny situation, but you could just do things normally without upsetting anybody else.
And I think it's hard when you've got another grandchild, as you have, Michelle. I've got one, it's just a month older. And every time I see her, because of the same sex, every time I see her, I say, would she be as advanced as Ivy Jean be as advanced as Charlotte? Would she be doing similar things as Charlotte? So you've got that remembering twice a week when I get her on a Monday and a Friday. I've always got that in the back of my head. And I always wear round my neck, it's a little heart with Ivy Jean's fingerprint on it, thumbprint on it. And I've got to admit, Charlotte comes up and kisses it every time she sees it. And it is nice. And but can you tell your daughter that? Because that would set her back. It's hard. I can tell a grandparent that. I could tell Tracy that, but you couldn't tell your daughter that.
No, you couldn't.
Or your son.
No.
It is. It's a difficult situation. And, you know, for both of you, being bereaved grandparents for a few years now, what advice then do you think you would give to a newly bereaved grandparent?
The road gets easier, and it helps to meet up with other grandparents and listen to their experiences. And they might take something from someone else speaking, and they won't feel like we did in the beginning. It's not easy, Tracy, as you know, but getting out and seeing other people that are grandparents and just experiencing each and everyone's comments on situations.
I totally agree. I think everybody's got a different story to tell, where if they're born sleeping at full term or born sleeping, through a miscarriage at 24 weeks or earlier. Everyone's a journey for a grandparent. And some grandparents have had 2, 3 of these journeys to make. And that must be so heartbreaking for them. That we've got to be there to support each other, because if we aren't, who else have we got to support us? Nobody. So it's better a grandparent supporting another one.
It is, because we can support our family, but we just can't. They can't support us when they're grieving as bad as they are.
Totally agree with you, Michelle, because it is hard. What is it for them to accept I think they think that once it's over with, we've got other grandchildren, but we haven't. We may have other children, but we'll have one special one, a little angel that's always there for us and always in our heart.
Exactly, I
I'm
agree
about
with you.
crying.
Yeah. And that's it. When you're newly bereaved, you're a newly bereaved grandparent. Is you both appreciate it's those early days where everyone's almost finding their feet and not knowing where to go or what to say, and it's the shock in the beginning for everyone, and especially for grandparents, because they and I know my own experience with mum, she wanted to be there straight away, but it was finding that time and space as well.
Yeah.
Well, I've got to admit, I was asked to go into the hospital at 6:30 in the morning, which I was there at 6:30, and I took in a baby grow, which I had, and went and got for her. So I took that in, and I was able to hold her, and that was special because it helps you, but it doesn't help you, because she was so beautiful.
Yeah.
So beautiful.
Yeah. And for you spending that that time with your granddaughter as well, just spending that time with Ivy Jean, it's precious memories, isn't it?
It is. And it was when later on I says I'll bring in her shawl, because I'd went and knitted the shawl as soon as I found out, and it did go through a wedding ring. It was a one-ply wedding shawl I knitted, and I took it in, and it was just in time for them to have the naming ceremony, and I felt a part. For the first time, you felt a part, and you seen the grief that they were going through.
Mm-hmm.
Naming a child is very hard for anybody, but having a ceremony to name her and knowing she's then leaving them is very hard.
Yeah. Totally. It's such a difficult but also a very precious situation, isn't it? It's for you both. It's that time in having those precious memories is something that you'll never forget as a grandparent, and it's something that you'll be able to share with your other grandchildren too.
Yeah. Like myself.
In the future.
Like myself, I was there when Mason was born, and we went into the special care unit, and we got time to cuddle and take lots of photographs. He encouraged us to take photographs. At the time, I was like, oh my gosh, I can't do this. But I'm glad I did take the photographs, because we got some lovely photographs, and I've had them all put into books for CJ and Soraya, and they know all about Mason, and they know that Mason's their cousin, and we still talk. I prefer if it's just my grandchildren, because I can take them up to the cemetery and we lay the flowers and balloons. But it's just that special bond. A gran loves her grandchildren no matter what. But you just can't replace what's not there anymore. And I don't know how you felt, Anne, but it's devastating to the extreme.
It is. I was going to retire anyway, but, to retire to look after 2 children, and now I'm retiring to look after 1. But I've not knitted since the day we cremated Ivy. I have not knitted. I ended up knitting her layette for leaving us.
Mm-hmm.
And I can't knit. You can't do anything. The granddaughter, I've got one of these little, what would you call them? Remember we used to have the knitting reels and then put 4 little pegs in and make the rat's tail.
Okay.
She said that.
I remember them.
And then she says, well, I've started her on one of those. And she says, well, you learned me to knit now, Granny. And I thought, I really I've not got the heart. It's not in me at the present time to do
Yeah.
it. The grief's still too much there. I'm just hoping in the future that I may become another gran at one time. And that's all I want.
Yeah. And that's the thing with other grandchildren. It's all these little things that you both were chatting there about spending time. How would you say then, when it comes to milestones for things like birthdays and Christmas, and as milestones come up and you've got other grandchildren, how do you manage that as well?
Well, Tracy, I tend to do a lot of things on my own, as you know. Birthdays are the hardest, Christmas. Because you're out Christmas shopping for your grandchildren. And then you're out shopping for a grave.
Yeah.
And I think you take more time choosing something for the baby that's not here, because you don't want to put something down that anybody will be upset about.
Yeah, because that's the thing. It's sometimes it's about managing other people's grief, isn't it?
It is, yeah.
As well.
Yeah. But birthdays are the hardest.
And you don't want to upset.
No. I always find birthdays.
You don't want to upset your son.
Yeah.
Well, birthdays, we always have a birthday party for Ivy.
Mm-hmm.
We've got a special cake made. Well, Lisa goes and gets a cake ordered and we get it made. And we always have a birthday party for her with a couple of her friends and family. And usually her sister-in-law and her partner, Sharon, go and do some stupid walk, or they jump off a bridge.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know what they're going to do next, to do some fundraising for her birthday to hand over to help the charity. But it's we try and be as normal, but it's Christmas. Christmas is the hardest. I just put flowers down.
Yeah.
Because that's all I can do. The grave is within the grave is John's mum as well, and our mother-in-law, my daughter's mother-in-law, and you just can't put a frivolous toy down because it wouldn't be right.
Mm-hmm. I found,
and the thing is,
sorry, Tracy. I also found the day that Mason died is heart-wrenching for me. I tend to do something on my own for that as well.
Yes, I was the 18th. Well, she was born on the 19th of July, so on the 18th is when they got told. Is my day.
Yeah,
that is my day. Because that is a day that I accept that she died, but she was born sleeping the following day.
Right. I just like the private time, because the private time is where I can release and not have to put a face on for my son or his partner. Because you just want everything to go smoothly and not upset. As I keep saying, you don't want to upset the adult children, but
no,
you need to have that grieving as well ourselves as grandparents.
Yeah, that's the thing. You're grieving the loss of you're grieving the loss of a future. You know, a first birthday, a first day at school, a first day at high school. You know, those days you're having with your other grandchildren. But that's, you know, you're grieving the loss of all of those things as well, which can be incredibly challenging. And I think it's lovely what you've both said, though. And Anne, we had chatted previously. I don't know if you want to touch on the part you said about Charlotte and Ivy Jean's pocket money. I love that.
Well, for Charlotte gets pocket money, might be £1, but she gets pocket money. And she can get her sweet off that. And sometimes her sweets last 2 or 3 days. But I always put money away for Ivy Jean, because she's still here. So at any birthdays and Christmases, they buy something. She buys something for her mum, and Mum says, "Oh, thanks." I says, "It's not me. It's Ivy Jean that's bought it."
Mm-hmm.
And it is true. At least she's got something decent, where a child would go and buy something big and gaudy, and you'll be trying to say, "No, Mummy would like something like this. No, Mummy would like this," and it's the biggest, gaudiest thing you'd ever seen. But Charlotte gets pocket money, and Ivy gets pocket money, no matter what. And once it gets up to a certain amount, it goes into a bank account for her, and she goes and buys her mum and daddy something special.
Oh, that's lovely. I never thought of that idea.
It's something I started just after Ivy, because it was just after Ivy was born. Lisa's birthday was a couple of months later. And I thought, well, she'd only be a wee baby. I'll just get her flowers. So it could be flowers. They've recently moved house, and I went and bought pieces for the garden, like a tree, for her dad's birthday. So it flowers round about his birthday, a magnolia tree. So there's always something that they can go out and say, "Oh, I got that from Ivy."
Mm-hmm.
And that's how I look at it. Something that she would have maybe have bought them, or I would have bought it, and she would have can take the credit for it.
Mm-hmm.
But it's something.
I planted 3 big trees in the garden after each grandchild was born. Mason would be the middle one, and the trees are growing fantastic. And when Soraya comes, she's always like, "Am I getting as tall as Mason, Grandma?" And I will say, "Oh, you're getting as tall as Mason."
No. What is it? I've got a tree in the garden which commemorates my uncle who died way back in 2000. A lovely, Japanese Asa. And then when Lisa and John got married, I bought a miniature Chinese blossom tree, and it's only 2 feet high, and it is lovely. But I got, and it was Lisa that got me, it was an Ivy Jean rose.
Oh,
She was
really?
given one from her work, and they got a rose named after her and her work. So she was given one. So Lisa went and bought one for myself. So I've got a beautiful pink Ivy Jean rose. It is lovely.
That's
so
beautiful.
That is a special part that I've got for her.
Very nice. That's lovely.
That's amazing. It's so nice. And, you know, the fact that you've both shared how you've included all your grandchildren there and with you've included all your grandchildren together. It's so lovely. And say, hopefully, newly bereaved grandparents listening to this podcast, you know, it'll give them some comfort in the way that you two have both managed your grief. So I was just going to ask here, so what advice then would you give to family and friends who are not sure how to support? You know, if they have a friend who's a grieving grandparent and they're not too sure how to support, what advice would you think you would be able to give to them?
Get in touch with you, Tracy. Get in touch with you.
Yeah, that was the way to say that, Michelle.
I would give them the info for Held in Our Hearts, for definite, because when this happens, you've no idea about Held in Our Hearts, or unless you've had a bereaved child prior. But speaking from experience, I didn't know about Held in the Hearts until after Mason died.
Well, I've got to admit, I knew about the charity, but I didn't know the supported grannies, and that is the best thing. Our grandfathers, it's the grandparents.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
We keep forgetting that we can't forget the men, because it is important to them as well. And I think sometimes they're forgotten about. It's not just grannies. Grandfathers are more apt to keep it inside them. So I would tell them to come to you, Tracy, come to Held in Your Hearts. Couldn't ask for a better support.
I agree with you, Anne. And that's true. That's a good support.
And it's so lovely to hear that, you know, that we knew a long time ago that, you know, for grandparents that support wasn't there, but to know that it is grandparents and it's the extended grief of the family, and it's every family member that needs supported, and it's such a privilege to know both of you and be able to speak to both of you and be part of the grandparents group is something so special, and to see grandparents support each other like you two have tonight.
I think we've got to be there for each other, because a lot of people don't understand what's going on, but Held in Their Hearts and yourself, Tracy, and all the other counsellors do. They've either went through the struggle themselves or a family member's went through it and couldn't ask for better.
And that's lovely to hear. That's absolutely lovely to hear that you've and as I said to you earlier, it's a privilege to know about Mason and a privilege to know about Ivy Jean and know the journey that you both have been on. And a huge thank you for you both tonight for taking part in the podcast. It's been my, as I say, absolute pleasure to meet with you both. And we always finish the podcast by asking a question. And the question would be, one thing that you're grateful for?
My daughter and my son-in-law, the love that I get from them.
That's lovely.
And me too, from my family, my husband, my daughter, and the children, because I can see how Mason would be, because him being the middle child, so I'm getting to see through the other children what could have been for Mason. And also very grateful to Held in Our Hearts team.
Fully support that, Michelle.
Mm-hmm. And you know what? We're grateful to both of you because you've given up your time tonight, and you've given up, you've given up your time to speak to us, and we are totally grateful to you because we know that this will make a difference for other grandparents. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you to Michelle and Dan for taking the time today to share about Mason and Ivy Jean. If you have been affected by any of the issues raised today, you can contact Held in Our Hearts by our website www.heldinourhearts.org.uk. Thank you for listening.